want to run over just some basics. Last week was skates from the turtle position. And this week we're going to go ahead and run over some of our variations from the clock choke. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to run the clock choke. Some are better than others, and some are better than others on certain body types, right? I still say your most basic clock choke is still true to form, one of the better ones, right? And so what's our basic one? We have three different ones. We'll just have you posture real quick, Alex. So my first one, right, the one that we run the most is going to be your core basic one, which is when I'm reaching across lapel. I come under and I hit my clock choke from here. My second variation is where I'll grab the wrist, right? And then third variation is where I actually just punch my hand into the leg and I start running that a little bit more. So there's a couple of different angles that we run from this. When we're running the clock choke, one thing that we have to be aware of is no matter what, I need to occupy the space between the shoulder and the ear, right? So that's going to be kind of key. Now, how I rotate my hips is going to depend on which choke I'm working. The old school choke, you get a better submission when your hips are up towards the ceiling. When you're going for the wrist or for the leg, you get a better choke when your hips are towards the ground. Okay. So what I tend to see is guys will kind of hybrid that. They'll learn one and then the other, and then they'll put those together. And then they're like, man, I can't get that choke to work. I'm like, well, number one, you're not occupying this space. You're over the top of their head, or you're still on the back side of their shoulder. And two is your hip placement is incorrect, right? If I do this correctly, then I should get a pretty good choke right away. So a couple of things that I look at, some mistakes that we see also is when you come in and you reach this collar, if you get too tight, you might negate your ability to run across the shoulder, right? So the thing is getting that choke too tight, and then you loosen up, or you've taken away some of the looseness field to run around the shoulder, right? And then there's that time where you're too loose, right? So you're going to have to find what makes sense to you. I would say that if you're tickling behind the ear, that's too far. And if your majority of your hands up towards the front of the chest, it's too loose. Somewhere in between is kind of nice. I always go, I'm never higher than the trap. I try to take my hand even with the trap, and that's where it fits best for me. If you got longer arms, you may have to adjust that a little bit. But the dynamics of the way that I'm finishing that choke do not change. A lot of times you'll see guys grab this grip, but they don't actually do anything with the grip. They're just holding onto a grip and they're going here. And so this little curve right here is not doing anything. I need to be able to lock my wrist out to be able to expose the blade. So when I grab that grip, I want to make sure that I'm exposing the blade of my wrist as I'm running that arm across. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? So we're going to start off from a very static position. I don't like hunting my clock choke with my hips to the inside like this. All right. Now I'll start off here and I'll feed in this lapel, and then I'll switch my legs up and I'll transition to this position where my hips are to the outside. If I turn myself to the inside, I kind of lock my body up. And so it makes it a lot harder for me, but I'll run that clock choke from here. Now, I do have to get around his shoulder. Sometimes, man, guys you may be rolling with someone that's a little bit smaller, and sometimes you're going to be rolling with dudes that have big shoulders. What I tell guys, regardless, get in the habit of going around and across. Don't try to run through this shoulder. You're never going to get across it. And if he's smart, he'll just lift this elbow up to block you from being able to go all the way across, right? It's a pretty good defense from that, okay? So as I'm here, I've got double unders. I feed that lapel, that cross lapel, for block your coach. I feed that cross lapel, and it doesn't have to be super crazy. I don't have to be like, I got to get it all the way across. Listen, I'm just locking onto it to hold on to the outside of his body so he can't roll out and bail out on this, right? Once I get that, you'll see switch my hips up and I'll start to go to the choke. So as I get this choke, as soon as I grab the choke, I lock my wrist out, cast the reel, whatever, like for all you guys that like to fish, cast the reel. I just For me, that's a pistol shot for me, right? So I got to walk my wrist out to where I'm exposing the bone. So as I get here, it's not like this where my arm is like this. As soon as I get here, I lock my wrist out. And he'll tell you how much tighter is that already getting. Your partner should already feel the tightness of it before you get going. So partner, if you don't feel that off the get-go, let your partner know. Like, don't wait until he's over there for 5 minutes trying to choke you and you're like, doesn't work, right? Don't wait that long to fix your partner, okay? As soon as I get here, you'll feel me lock it out, all right? I'll start to slide my hips. And then when I get here, I open and I stretch. It's a very tight choke. It almost puts you to sleep. This choke is one of those ones, man, you have to be careful because guys will go to sleep on this if you do it right. As soon as I sit my hip on his shoulder, he's going to fall. That's the whole context of driving my hip and keeping my hips to the ceiling, is I basically sit on that shoulder and fold his head to the ground so he can't roll underneath me. If I do this, but I roll my hips downwards, he can do like a Granby roll out of this. It's very easy for him to do that Granby roll out of there, right? So again, as I get here, I've already got from that static position. I'll come up. Again, I cast. I slide my knee out. I walk and I sit and I just wait for him to tap. Bottom people, make sure you're tapping, right? Because this is one of those ones, if I don't know, I'm just going to keep sitting my weight. So how does this choke work so well? I'm using the downward pressure of my weight sitting on your shoulder and the cross and the pull to cut off the circulation. This is 100% a blood choke. You should feel that going on, right? If you don't feel that going on, then your partner doesn't have it right. So last time, and I'll try to loosen this up so I can sit there long enough for you guys to see. So again, I'll start off here. I'll feed. I'll sit my transition, feed my arm across, lock it into play, slide my hips out, and then right here, I just sit and pull. And there's your tap. Don't worry about it. Just keep sitting. Like he's not moving. Bill will tap. It's a blood choke. 3 to 5 seconds. It's not like a trach choke. All right. This should be okay. I'm not good. All right. Who's ever